What it do? Welcome to today's episode of Locked On Bucks. On today's show, Dame's homecoming to Portland did not go the way the Bucks were hoping that it would. Bucks dropped the game 119 to 116 to the Trailblazers. It was a crazy fourth quarter finish that we'll break down, take a look at the offense and the defense, plus some key contributors, and also just take a look at how Dame's homecoming went. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis. You can catch me weekly on the Technical File podcast, as well as work with Cheesehead TV and Pack a Day podcast. Joining me is longtime voice of the pod and founder of BrewHoop.com, Frank Madden. We appreciate you tuning in, and we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, Frank, tonight's game did not go the way that Bucks fans were hoping for it to go. And before we actually dig into the game, I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge Dame's homecoming back in Portland and the reception that he got. Adidas surprised him by naming a court in their headquarters after him. The Trailblazers gave him not one, but two tribute videos tonight for his on-court and off-court efforts. Just before we dive into the game and what happened, how did you feel about Dame's homecoming tonight in Portland and the response that he got from the fans?
Didn't care. Honestly, Camille, I'm so annoyed by that game. Whatever. We all knew the fans would be classy. You know, you talked about it, in the crossover with Locked On Blazers. Of course, he's well loved. You know, he was going to get the tribute video and the cheers and all that.
Frank said, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, but whatever. At the end of the day, Blazers fans wanted that win. I think the Blazers wanted that win. And, I mean, just the start of the fourth quarter, Camille, I just cannot get over what just an absolute disaster class from Giannis and Dame, your two leaders.
You wouldn't expect it from.
The two guys that are supposed to be, guiding the ship. And when, things are going poorly, you rely on them to get you kind of steered in the right direction. That was where they lost the game. I mean, it was back and forth. And I thought, the defense was really bad in the first half. I think in the second half, the defense was much better. But unfortunately, I think the Blazers just kind of got confident. They were not afraid. And they hit 17 out of 28 mid-range shots. And that was the deciding shot from Anthony Simons. Was a really tough kind of floater area type shot. Jeremy Grant hit, 3 or 4 of those in the fourth quarter, something like that. And even though the Bucks did turn on the defense with multiple big plays in the final 2 minutes, Giannis, Malik Beasley, principally forcing a couple turnovers, Giannis kind of reenacting his DeAndre Ayton block from the finals a few years ago. By the way, Mark Jones, it was weird. I don't know if you were watching the ESPN broadcast. He was like, "Didn't Giannis have a block on DeAndre Ayton in the finals?" It's like, yeah, it's maybe the greatest block in NBA history, Mark. Thanks for paying attention. But yeah, it was just, they had one turnover in the first half. Good job. They took care of the ball, both teams in the first half, and I think 12 turnovers in the second half, and sloppy in the third quarter to get the Blazers out and playing from the front. And then again, 6 straight turnovers to start the fourth quarter, 5 from Dame and Giannis, another charge from Pat Connaughton, which I thought was kind of marginal, but whatever. Giannis had another charge later in the fourth quarter. Again, hey, nice job coming back and almost stealing a win, but guys, this was the easiest game on this road trip, and you just absolutely blew it.
Yeah, starting the road trip off 0-2 was not something that I expected. I for sure thought that Denver would be a tough game for this Milwaukee Bucks team. It's the defending champions. It's in Denver, a place where the Bucks haven't historically played well. I understand the emotions coming into this game in Portland around Dame. But like you said, this is a game on this road trip that you expected the Bucks to come out with a victory from. And when you look at the Bucks defense over the last 4 games prior to this one, we were remarking over the fact hey, the defense is actually looking okay so far. Like over the last 4 games, the Bucks had a 110.9 defensive rating, which is far lower than what their season average has been so far at 116.3. And then tonight, the Portland Trailblazers have a 122.7 offensive rating in the game. Again, against a team that you're not necessarily expecting to be one to put up those types of points on the Bucks, nor, I mean, we know the Trailblazers have some good individual defenders. I've been saying for a while that Matisse Thybulle is someone who I was hoping the Bucks would be able to target before the trade deadline comes to a close. But with Doc Rivers coming into town, not sure how feasible that is anymore given their relationship. So I don't want to discredit some of the individual defensive performances we saw from Portland, but I definitely felt like the Bucks left a lot of money on the table offensively tonight.
Yeah, I mean the upside, you look at Portland, their quarter by quarter scoring goes 37, 30, 29, 23, which I think was reflective of the defense kind of getting progressively better. The problem was the Bucks went 38, 27, 26, 25. So they were also trending down the entire game. And, Dame, the final line here, 9 out of 23, 3 of 13 from three, 4 of 4, only 4 free throws, 7 assists, 4 turnovers. Was a +6. Giannis and Dame were both +6, which didn't feel that way. And I think both those guys, Giannis 6 turnovers, 4 of them in the fourth quarter. I think you look at what went wrong offensively and just the lack of execution. I think it starts with those guys, and I think the Blazers deserve a lot of credit. I mean, they were doing different things. We didn't see a lot of Dame Giannis pick and roll, but a lot of that was because we saw a lot of Malcolm Brogdon defending Giannis, which, it's not quite Drew Holiday on Giannis in terms of, a lack of benefit from switching. But when you're just switching a pick and roll, there's no role that's there to disrupt and make hay off of. And again, there were times where, I think Ayton and Jabari Walker and other guys were defending Giannis. And so it's not okay, it wasn't the same thing all night long. But yeah, just really not enough from those guys. And, the final kind of stat lines were okay from them. Giannis was 10 for 16 from the field, which, hey, that's a very, good field goal percentage. But he had a hard time, I think, just kind of getting enough shots, right? 16 shots in 38 minutes is not enough from him. And again, the 6 turnovers, just too much. And I mean, there was that one play where Dame just telegraphs a pass for a steal, and then it's a 2-on-2 fast break, and he then somehow manages to steal the ball back, and then just throws the ball back under the basket for Jeremy Grant to dunk it. He had a steal and two turnovers in the span of 6 seconds. I looked at the box score, and just too many like that. I mean, just some of the turnovers are just, what are you guys doing? What are you guys seeing? And yeah, again, it's just, you kind of just open yourself up to these types of results. And early in the season, they were doing this stuff, and then they would pull it out, in the end, right? I mean, we saw them beat Portland the first time in Milwaukee because they were able to kind of get, have the clutch magic laid and pull out a win. But, again, it's just kind of, you play with fire long enough, you're going to get burned. So that's what we saw. And, Chris Middleton, shout out Chris, 21 points on 13 shots. He was kind of keeping them in it with, just a flurry of mid-rangers and those 3 for 5 from 3. Had 8 assists and 1 turnover. So don't complain about Chris Middleton and, him making bad passes or dribbling too much. 8 assists, 1 turnover, and really good shooting. But, we didn't really see the ball in his hands because he's Chris Middleton and they're Dame and Giannis, which, I get it. But yeah, I mean, the big two were not big enough tonight. And, people are going to complain about Brook Lopezs taking, what could have been the winning shot, right, in on that not final possession, but pretty much final possession. But, Malcolm Brogdon ran as a double team onto Dame, and Dame made the right play, kicked it over to Brook, pump fake, had a great look, and Brook was 4-9 from 3. He had 2 big clutch threes down the stretch, And, I don't know. I think it's fashionable to complain about Brook when he misses threes and then nobody says anything when when he makes big threes. But, we've seen him make big threes all year long. He's obviously not been shooting the three as well overall as you'd like. But, 19 points on 14 shots from him tonight. I don't know. I think, again, this is just people, I think, to me, getting mad about result rather than process. And honestly, like, Dame missed a really good look at a three about a minute or two before that. And again, I mean, he's shot really poorly from three all month, 3 for 13 tonight. I know we'd love to romanticize like him obviously making a game-winning shot in Portland, but I think the Blazers, I think the Blazers wanted to make sure that he didn't get a chance to do that. And, they were willing to give up a really good look in exchange for not having Dame be able to tap his wrist. And, unfortunately, it just didn't go down for Brook. And unfortunately, he also missed it so far short that Giannis had great position under the basket. If he kind of, misses it in a softer way, Giannis maybe gets a putback. But obviously that doesn't happen. And I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to how the Bucks used their timeouts before that. But, they used their last timeout on that play, which ended up being a big deal because they couldn't advance the ball after Jeremy Grant ended up hitting the 2 free throws to make it a 3-point lead. And, I thought the play down three with 4.5 seconds left. I mean, it's like I don't know if they were trying to. Dame was inbounding, which is kind of like what happened against Sacramento, but there was no there. Brook came up and was able to catch free and Dame get the ball back to Dame. In this case, Giannis gets it and starts galloping up the floor, and they wisely just foul him, right? And he misses the first free throw, and that's it. So again, like, they clearly needed a timeout in that situation. And even if, regardless, like, getting the ball to Giannis was obviously not going to be the answer either. Because what's the best case scenario down three and Giannis galloping up court, right? Like, he's got to make a play for somebody else because he's not going to shoot it in 4.5 seconds. Like, that's just not a lot of time. So, so just poor all around, once they took their final timeout. I'd say the final shot they got was real, was a good look for Brook, but everything thereafter obviously just did not go the way they would have wanted.
Yeah, that shot from Brook was really interesting because there were some people who were just yelling, like, pass the ball back to Dame. And I was like, I get it, but Malcolm Brogdon was playing too. I was like, there's a world where I could see that pass not making it there or Brogdon being able to recover really quickly. I don't think the shot to Dame would have been as open, but one could argue that it still might have been a better look. And to that, I would just say, well, the hot hand from three in this particular game happened to be from Brook Lopezs. Now, him doing a sidestep dribble into an open three, that rhythm might have thrown him off a little bit, but he's had a hot hand from three so far, not just in this game, but the previous 2 games as well. So I do want to talk a little bit more about fourth quarter execution and give Chris Middleton some more credit, which you touched on a little bit in the next segment here. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And honestly, it's no wonder why that is. It's the easiest and the most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. You do not have to worry about battling thousands of other players, which normally includes pros and sharks, because with Prize Picks, all you're doing is picking more than or less than on 2 to 6 different player stat projections, and then you can watch the winnings roll in. One of my favorite things about Prize Picks personally is the quick withdrawals, because when I win and I win big, I want my money quickly. So I love the fact that Prize Picks has super quick withdrawals. The money gets into my account really quickly. You pair that up with easy gameplay and an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that all adds up to make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. We appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks. A special shout out to the everydayers who make sure they tune in Monday through Friday. And if you like what we do here at Locked On Bucks, please check out Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On Sports Today is going to bring you 24/7 coverage of all the top sports stories of the day. And it's brought to you by the local experts of Locked On. And you know the work is solid when Locked On's name is attached to it. So make sure you check that out on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right. So I mentioned the fact that I wanted to talk a little bit more about Chris Middleton because I think it was a really good Chris Middleton game. And in the first half, I noticed the fact that Chris was 3 of 4 in the first quarter, finished the half 3 of 4. And I'm looking at that like, okay, this reminds me a bit of the Denver game as well, where Chris got off to a pretty hot start, didn't see the ball as much. And then he got a little bit colder as the game went on. But tonight against Portland, Chris kept it up. Like Chris finishes the game 9 of 13 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3 point. He had 8 assists, as you mentioned, did not turn the ball over too much, only 1 turnover. And we know how Bucks Twitter can act whenever Chris Middleton turns the ball over at any point in the game. It's as if, that was his 8th one, but low turnover game for Chris, high assist, efficient game from the field. And defensively, I liked what I saw from him as well. You saw him matched up on Simons at times. You saw him matched up on Jeremy Grant. And I felt like he did a pretty good job tonight. And of the big three, given the fact that he had the most assists, didn't turn the ball over as much, although he had, 21 points, Giannis had 27, Dame had 25. I think Chris Middleton arguably had the best game on the Bucks tonight.
Well, Bobby Portis is the third most important player on the team, according to Michael Wilbon of ESPN. Like, Jesus Christ, man! Like, read the room. Like, whoa. I guess because Bobby had a decent first half. I think he had 9 points in the first half, and Michael Wilbon watches the Bucks once a month. If that, right? And so it's just like, is Bobby Portis is really important, I guess. Oh, Jesus Christ! Like, I was just like sitting there like, man, why do I don't know. Do you remember when like the national TV broadcast would come, the like schedule would come out like years and years ago, Camille, before the Bucks were good, and it would be like exciting. Oh, the Bucks have some national TV games. And then people would realize that like actually it's not cool having national TV games because then you have to listen to the broadcasters who never watch your team like, say stuff and like,
and you're like, wait, what?
Like they don't, well, that doesn't have it, so anyway, that's an aside. But yeah, Chris was really good. Wasted a really good Chris night. And if he wasn't kind of burying a lot of tough shots, I don't think they would have been able to have it as close as they did. They needed him to do all the damage that he was doing, I think, in really like the second half of the third quarter, because Giannis scored like 6 quick points early in the third quarter, and I think it was like 74-69. You thought, okay, maybe they're going to extend a lead, and then I think the Blazers went on like a 10-0 run or something like that, and kind of had it right back in the game. And Giannis, then I don't think he scored until early in the fourth. He was pretty much neutralized. I think going small against him and kind of clogging up the paint really seemed to work well. And the Blazers just put a lot of like kind of scrappy defensive types. Whether it was Kamara, we saw Thibault, and Brogdon, who I don't, you don't think of Brogdon as like some scrappy defender, but he's really strong, and we've seen him do this in Indiana and Boston as well, where they put him on Giannis, and he's kind of a weird guy to attack, given he's smaller, so he's can move side to side a bit and all that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Chauncey Billups is a great coach, but he was able to obviously tap into some stuff that kept the Bucks off balance, and I'm still just having visions of some of those like Dame and Giannis turnovers, just
crazy. Unbelievable.
Like,
it felt like slapstick comedy at times.
I mean, it was like, are we shaving points here? Like, what's the deal? Like, Dame, we know you love Portland, but like you're loving Portland a little too much with some of these horrible plays. He did have that out of nowhere dunk.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the irony, right? Like he took like a 35-footer like real early that he missed, but he got to the rim for 3 layups in the first half of the first quarter, and kind of got on track that way. And he was 6 of 10 from 2. But again, the overall efficiency was really dinged by the fact that just the 3 ball, it just seems like most games he's just shooting, like 30%, 25%. And I don't know. It's just, I think just like normally you'd expect him to mix in more, 6 for 13 games, 4 for 8 games. And it's just not happening. He's just not getting into whatever rhythm, from 3. And again, like I don't know, people I think have to me, like bent over backwards trying to make excuses for like, well, he's not because they're not passing the ball, they're letting him bring up the ball enough, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, damn, you got 23 shots tonight. Like, go make some more. Like make more shots. Like, it's not like he's frozen out of the offense or something like that. Like, it's just got to be better. But obviously we've been saying similar stuff all year, and I think part of the difference tonight was like Giannis has bailed the Bucks out so much. When kind of some of this stuff happens, Giannis pops up and scores 35, right? And I think this has happened now repeatedly over the last week or two. He really hasn't had many of these big games that we've been used to. He's been having kind of a lot of these, like, he had 22 last game, which is a down game for him, but sorry, at 22, I think 2 games ago. But 27 or whatever, 29 last game, 25, 27, right? Like, I mean, those are good for mortals, but for Giannis, you need more, like, because the Bucks need him to be even more impactful offensively, especially given that the bench does not score with any consistency, right? And again, same story tonight. Even though the starters were not good, the starters were all positive plus minus, and the bench were all between -9 and -11. Jay Crowder has not been Jay Crowder has not rescued the bench effectiveness. He had 1 out of 5 threes and scored 6 points overall, but it's just sort of a similar story when the Bucks go to these bench lineups, like they just immediately get outscored, and campaign 0 for 5, -9 in 8 minutes, like just one of those nights for him.
Yeah, and it's tough when shots aren't falling. And you mentioned the fact that Dame was 3 of 13 from the field. We talked about the bench. I mean, Jay Crowder was 1 of 5 from 3. Campaign was 0 for 2. Malik Beasley was 1 for 6. The Bucks as a team finished 13 of 45 from 3, shot under 29%, just under that. And this is the Bucks team that generally shoots around 38% from 3. Like, that's you don't normally see this type of performance, and it really sunk the Bucks because, I mean, they put up 45 threes in comparison to the Blazers putting up 28 of them. And that's part of how the Bucks play. So I'm not mad about the shot attempts. It's just you hope to see more of those drop. But before we move on to the next segment, I do want to point out the fact that Giannis was 7 of 11 from the free throw line. The Portland fans were bringing back the countdown, the chants. And I know some people get annoyed by the fans chanting. Me personally, bring it on. I'm here for it. I love Giannis.
Speeds him up. I think he shoots faster.
It feels like he speeds up, and I love Giannis. That's my boy. But the man does take a very long time at the free throw line. So, listen, it seems like when the fans count, it helps to put him in a better rhythm somehow, some way. Maybe because he's hearing that clock out loud instead of it being internal. So I'm here for it. For all I care, put it in NBA 2K next year. Make the game super realistic. Have fans chanting at him. I hope opposing fans keep chanting at him from the free throw line at this point. But yeah, poor 3-point shooting from the team tonight doesn't help. Glad to see Giannis make some free throws, but they're going to have to be better. They're going to have to be better because, like we mentioned at the start of this show, this was probably the gimme game on this road trip. So we can dig in a little bit deeper of what the Bucks have left on this road trip before they head back home next week, right after this. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing my favorite snacks, judging the halftime show, and I do judge them all. Usher better come correct. And I also love placing some super bets. And even though my team, the Packers, aren't playing next week, which again, I sigh, because could have been us. But luckily, FanDuel has a lot of different other ways for us to end the season with a win or 2 or even 3. Because not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, you can also bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, if you join today, you will get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So the Bucks are now 0-2 in the Doc Rivers era. They are 0-2 on this West Coast road trip. Again, they saw the defending champions on Monday. They saw Portland today. the Bucks do not play again until Saturday when they head to Dallas to take on the Mavericks. They don't get much rest after that because the very next day on Sunday, they're playing Utah, and then they end this West Coast road trip against Phoenix. That's another 9 p.m. start, late game TNT. With them going 0-2 to start the road trip, Frank, if you had to make a prediction, how do you think they finished the last 3 games here?
Kind of deciding, do I think they win 2 or 1? Camille, I'll be the optimist. I'll be the glass half full. I'll say they go 2-1 to finish the trip. And I don't know which of those games they're going to win. Those are some weird teams. I mean, all those teams have been kind of hard to predict. Dallas is just kind of all over the place. Like, you never know what kind of version of the Mavericks you're going to get. Obviously, Utah, we saw kind of the best version of Utah in Milwaukee. So on the one hand, I don't think the Bucks are going to take that game for granted, but who knows, right? And then obviously Phoenix, their big three has been coming together more consistently. But again, we know that team obviously has its vulnerabilities, especially on the defensive end. So yeah, I mean, like there's a version where you could go 0-5 on this road trip. I'll give them more credit than that and assume that they kind of figured some stuff out. I think, given that you've got, a couple days off here between now and the Saturday game and the back-to-back, will be interesting to see if, Doc Rivers and the new staff try to put a little bit more of their imprint on kind of the version of the Bucks that we see on Saturday. Again, not that you're going to, overhaul things systematically or anything like that between now and then, but, especially coming off 2 losses, like they're going to have certainly a lot from this game tape wise, especially from that first half defensively, that I'm sure they're going to want to talk about. But I don't know. We will see. How are you feeling about the last 3?
Yeah, 2-1 feels good. The Bucks have been good on back-to-backs this season as well. I believe they're 6-1 on back-to-back so far this season, and so far this season they have tended to play well in the rematches against teams that beat them the first time. They tend to have that little bit of get back within them where they come back, get a win. So the Utah game, although it's the second night of a back-to-back, I see that as a game that the Bucks can win. The Bucks did beat Dallas when they were here in Milwaukee earlier this season, and things have been weird in Dallas to say as of late, but you can't overlook what Luka has been doing over the last couple of weeks. The man has been just a scoring machine, and with the way that this Bucks defense has been looking, if they don't tighten that up, Luka will just have a field day on this team. And historically, Phoenix is another place where the Bucks haven't played super well. Of course, we got the big victories in the finals that were needed, but historically hasn't been a place where they play super well. But I think they know what's at stake. They can't leave this road trip, going 0-for-5 on this one. 1-4 feels just, that doesn't feel good either. It doesn't feel right. I do think that they can finish it at least 2-3. Like, you at least try to split it. If you can't come back with a record over 500, at least try to get close enough to that mark. So, as you mentioned, they do have a few days off, though, in between this game against Portland and that Dallas game. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll be able to talk about during shoot-arounds and implement during practice, because I have seen just a couple of little changes with Doc at the helm. Like, the ball does seem to be in Dame's hands a bit more. It seems like there's a more concerted effort to get him the ball when they're pushing it up the court. Saw a lot more like just double screens with Dame, some more 2-man game, and not even just with pick and rolls, but dribble handoffs, double screens, like I mentioned. So that's been interesting to see them sprinkle that in a bit more, and I'm looking to see how that might look with a couple more days. Again, Doc already told us before he coached his first game, like, it's going to take some time, and I'm not coming in here to change everything wholeheartedly. You just can't do that at this point in the season. So I'm feeling like you, Frank. I'm hoping it's a 2-1 record. I'm not quite sure where they get the victories, but I do think one of those will come against the Jazz. I'm just not sure if that other win would be against Phoenix or against Dallas in this upcoming game, but we're going to see.
Yeah, I think you hope that you get the bad version of the Mavericks, who, Bucks have won some games. I think they swept the Mavericks last year. They had that kind of crazy, if I remember correctly, they had kind of that crazy win in Dallas that like they probably didn't deserve, and beat them once already this season, in spite of Luka and Kyrie just basically getting to go one-on-one against Dame and Malik Beasley all through crunch time.
Over and over.
So, and yeah, it has been interesting. It does feel like they've been trying to run, like, you said, the double drag, and some of that stuff, and it doesn't seem like it leads anywhere. Like it's weird. Like it's felt like it's just everything's just looked too crowded. Like
Yeah.
Giannis doesn't know kind of how to, like, where to go from those, and so I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, work in progress. I would say, from an offensive perspective, certainly doesn't feel like, some market difference. One thing defensively, it feels like I've been noticing them like really consciously trying to ice side pick and rolls more, which I didn't understand. Like, I don't know if we've talked about this much. It always seemed weird to me. Like they always seem to like almost funnel teams to go middle out of pick and rolls, like side pick and rolls, which I don't know, doesn't feel like ideal. I remember in the Sacramento game that went into overtime, like De'Aaron Fox, like they were just like giving De'Aaron Fox middle. And he was like
Over
just
and
dribbling
over.
into
Yeah.
like easy mid-range jump shots. And I was like, why would you not like at least try to force him, like ice him baseline and make him work from that side rather than to middle. But it did seem like they were definitely doing that kind of very clearly tonight. So I don't know, not that that's some like revolutionary, that's some revolutionary thing. We all saw this also. I mean, this they did in Denver too, putting Giannis on like a center so that you can, when you switch, there's not like the Brook switching onto a guard type situation, and then you can kind of scram switch behind that. If you do switch a guard onto a big, getting basically either Brook or another larger player to try to switch sort of behind the play before the defense can react. So, which again, that's not like revolutionary stuff, but it's good stuff to have kind of in your back pocket. And again, they did that at times with Adrian Griffin too. It's not like Doc came in and be like, let me introduce you to this concept, I
Basic
mean,
concept, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, so honestly, so much of this too is like, it's just like, can you just execute more consistently and not blow
Exactly.
coverages and things like that, right? Like think about like down the stretch in Denver, right? That like play where Chris and Giannis blew the switch with Michael Porter and he gets wide open for a dunk, right? A pretty crucial play. Just executing like a non-optimal scheme well is not the worst thing in the world. If you're not executing a not optimal scheme, that is the worst thing you can be doing. So that's obviously probably what it's felt like for long stretches of this season. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they can start to kind of get right, because this just felt like a wasted opportunity. And again, just a game that you're going to look back and say like, guys, seriously, like, like you need to be more serious about games like this. And unfortunately, they got serious too late. And I'm shocked. Jeremy Grant was 7 out of 14. It feels, I don't know that I don't recall him like missing any shots. But
And he was making some tough ones too.
yeah, but that's just kind of the way this game felt. And
yeah,
now you got a couple days to think about it.
A couple days to think about it, a couple days to get right. And I hope they can clean up the turnovers. Those turnovers coming in spurts, they just completely stall out the offense. And we've already mentioned just some of the offensive clunkiness that they've had. But when you have those really high turnover quarters, it's really hard to get things going, because it's harder to get into a rhythm. So hopefully they clean that up. Like you said, they got a couple days to think about it. We'll be back with more Locked On Bucks tomorrow to preview the weekend slate and close out the week, hopefully on a positive note. So for Frank and myself, we'll catch you all later.